Chapter 2. Morning came slowly, as if the sun itself were reluctant to look at what Savannah had become. Matthew Dyer knew it was morning, not by light, but by sound. The neighborhood changed tone when day arrived, birds testing the air in hesitant bursts, a distant engine turning over and dying, the low hum of electricity still flowing through wires that didn't yet know they were supposed to fail. The house creaked awake around them, old wood shifting, pipes ticking as water moved somewhere inside the walls. He lay still on the living room floor, the wooden staff tucked against his chest like a second spine. He had not really slept. He had closed his eyes, yes, but sleep implied surrender, and surrender felt dangerous now. Thor breathed nearby, alive, injured, but alive. Matthew exhaled for the first time in hours. The dog lay on a blanket Whitley had dragged in from the couch, his flank rising unevenly beneath layers of towels and duct tape bandages. Every breath rasped, but it was steady. Not the wet, broken choking of the things outside. Just pain. Just blood. Just a body that still belonged to itself. Whitley sat cross-legged beside him, her back against the couch, phone clutched in both hands like it might float away if she let go. The glow of the screen washed her face in pale light. She hadn't slept either. Matthew could hear it in the way her breathing never quite settled. Saoirse and Matthew Jr. slept tangled together under a blanket on the floor, exhaustion finally winning. Raymond dozed fitfully in the pack-and-play they dragged into the living room, one hand clutching the mesh side like it might disappear. Lilith lay quiet in her carrier, chest rising and falling in a fragile rhythm that made Matthew afraid to blink. Morrigan sat awake. She always sat awake. Cross-legged near the front door, spine straight, hands folded neatly in her lap, watching, listening, counting. Matthew shifted slightly, the floorboard whispering under his weight. Morrigan's head turned instantly. "They're quieter now," she said. Matthew nodded. "Quieter doesn't mean gone." She considered that. "No, it means waiting." Whitley's phone buzzed softly. Matthew flinched at the sound before he could stop himself. Whitley muted it immediately, jaw tight. "There's still service," she whispered. "Not good, but it's there." That was something. Something thin and fragile, but something. She scrolled, eyes moving fast. Matthew couldn't see the words, but he could hear the subtle change in her breathing, the way it hitched and steadied in uneven cycles as she absorbed whatever the screen fed her. "What does it say?" he asked. Whitley hesitated. That told him more than the words ever could. "People are posting videos," she said finally. "Hospitals, streets, a VA clinic on the south side. Someone says patients just snapped." "Snapped how?" Matthew asked. Violent, confused, like they didn't know where they were. She swallowed. "They're saying it's some kind of medical thing. A reaction." "Reaction to what?" Saoirse mumbled, half asleep. Whitley glanced down at her, brushing hair from her face. "Go back to sleep, baby." Saoirse didn't argue. She curled tighter into her brother, thumb in her mouth. Whitley kept scrolling. "City hasn't said much," she continued quietly. "Mayor's office says there's been isolated incidents and to stay indoors if you feel unsafe." Matthew almost laughed. It came out as a short, humorless breath. "They always say that," he said. Power still hummed through the house. The refrigerator kicked on. Somewhere down the block, a television blared, the muffled cadence of a morning news anchor leaking through open windows. Normal things, familiar things. They pressed against the memory of the night like denial. "What about the police?" Matthew asked. Whitley shook her head. "People are saying response times are bad or non-existent. There are videos of officers backing away, not engaging." Matthew pictured uniforms retreating, hands shaking, radios screaming with too many voices at once. "National Guard?" he asked. "Rumors," Whitley said. Nothing confirmed. She stopped scrolling suddenly. Matthew felt it, felt the way her body stiffened. "What?" he asked. "There's a post," she said slowly. "Someone's brother works at Memorial. He says they were told to lock down a wing last night. Patients attacked staff. Security shot one of them and it didn't stop him. Not right away." Matthew's grip tightened on the staff. "Did they say how?" he asked. "No," Whitley said. "Just that it kept coming." Morrigan spoke without turning around. "Because pain doesn't work anymore." Whitley stared at her. "Morrigan," she said gently, "where did you hear that?" Morrigan shrugged, a small, precise movement. "I didn't hear it. I noticed it." Matthew felt a chill crawl up his spine. Outside, a car alarm went off, 3 sharp, piercing bursts that tore through the morning like a scream. It cut out abruptly, leaving the air buzzing with its absence. No one moved. Whitley's phone buzzed again. She silenced it and lowered her voice further. "There's something else," she said. "People are saying animals aren't acting strange. Dogs, cats, normal. Livestock too. Whatever this is, it's not hitting them." Matthew thought of Thor, bleeding but still himself. Still loyal, still there. "That means it's not rabies," he said. "Not anything that crosses species easy." Whitley nodded. "That's what some people are saying in the comments. Others are calling it a hoax or a riot." Another buzz. Whitley's thumb hovered over the screen before tapping. Her face drained of what little color it had. "There's a video," she said, "from Ogeechee." Matthew's stomach dropped. "Near here?" he asked. "Too near," she whispered. She didn't show him. She didn't need to. He could hear it in her breathing. The muffled shouting, the panic bleeding through tiny speakers, the wet sounds the microphone couldn't quite capture. "They're biting people," Whitley said, voice cracking. "They're not stopping." The house felt suddenly too small, too loud, too fragile. Matthew pushed himself to his feet, joints aching. He reached for his sunglasses out of habit, sliding them onto his face even though the light was still low. They dulled the pain, just enough to think. "Okay," he said, forcing steadiness into his voice. "Power's still on. Phones still work. That means we have time." "Time for what?" Whitley asked. "To decide," he said, "before everyone else does it for us." Outside, a distant siren wailed and then cut off mid-note. Savannah hadn't fallen yet, but it was leaning, and the Dyer family stood at the edge of that lean, listening as the world decided whether it was going to catch itself or finally collapse. The first real decision came with the sun. By mid-morning, Savannah had brightened into something cruel. Light poured through the thin curtains, stabbing at Matthew's eyes even through the dark lenses of his sunglasses. He sat at the dining table with his back to the window, staff resting across his knees, listening to the house breathe. Power was still on. That alone felt wrong. Electricity meant order. It meant someone, somewhere, was still pretending the world worked. Whitley moved quietly through the kitchen, rationing without calling it that. She set out granola bars, poured water into cups instead of juice, measured formula carefully for Lilith. Every movement was deliberate, efficient. She was already adapting. Matthew heard a knock, 3 quick raps, not frantic, not weak, controlled. Everyone froze. Thor lifted his head with a pained grunt, ears angling forward. No growl, no warning snarl. Just attention. Matthew stood slowly. "Stay back," he whispered. He didn't reach for the gun yet. He listened. Breathing on the other side of the door, fast but not ragged. A foot shuffled. Fabric brushed wood. "Whitley," a man's voice called softly. "It's me, Carl, from next door." Matthew exhaled carefully. Carl Whitaker, late 50s, retired electrician, smelled like cigarettes and motor oil, loud laugh, used to bring Thor jerky when he grilled. "Carl's real," Matthew said quietly. Whitley still hesitated. Then she nodded and unlatched the chain, keeping the door cracked. Carl stood on the porch, hands raised, eyes bloodshot and wild. Not infected wild, but human wild. Fear. Sweat darkened his collar. A radio dangled from his wrist, duct-taped and battered. "They're eating people," Carl said immediately. "I saw it." Whitley opened the door wider. "Inside. Now." Carl didn't argue. He stepped in fast, nearly tripping over the threshold. His eyes flicked to Thor, bandaged and breathing. "Dog got hit?" he asked. "Protected us," Whitley said. Carl nodded, grim. "Figures." Matthew stayed between Carl and the hallway. "What did you see?" Carl swallowed. "Gas station on Montgomery. Guy came out bleeding, screaming for help. Another man tackled him, looked like he was trying to help." Carl shook his head. "Then the bleeding guy bit his neck. Wouldn't let go. Someone shot him twice. He kept chewing." Silence followed that. "They ain't dead," Carl added, "but they ain't right." He held up the radio. "This thing's saying to stay indoors. Curfews. Emergency response ongoing." His voice cracked. "But I've been hearing sirens all morning and not a single one coming back." Matthew turned his head slightly toward the radio. "Turn it on." Carl clicked it. Static hissed, then a clipped male voice broke through. "State Emergency Management advises residents to remain calm and shelter in place. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Avoid downtown corridors. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage with violent individuals. National Guard deployment pending authorization." The transmission cut to static again. Pending, Carl scoffed. That means not yet. Might mean never. Whitley leaned against the wall, arms crossed tight. If we leave, she said quietly, we have a baby, a toddler, a blind husband. Matthew flinched at the word, but didn't correct her. There was no time for pride. If we stay, Carl said, you've got thin walls and neighbors who panic. As if summoned, shouting erupted down the block. Matthew heard it before anyone else, raised voices, the sharp edge of anger turning into fear, footsteps running, a crash, glass shattering. Thor growled this time, weak but unmistakable. Matthew moved. He didn't see the house as rooms anymore. He saw it as sound and memory. He paced it off, counting steps, touching door frames, dragging fingers along walls. Whitley, he said, get the bats. Axe 2. She didn't question him. Matthew positioned furniture by feel, couch angled to funnel movement, table flipped to create a barrier, chairs stacked to block the hallway choke point. He tied a rope from the stair banister to the coat rack, chest high, something to trip anything that rushed in without thinking. Windows? Saoirse asked. Covered, Matthew said, quietly. The shouting outside turned into screaming. Then came the gunshot. 1, 2, a pause. Then a third. Matthew's heart hammered. They're close, Morrigan said. The radio crackled again, louder now, frantic. Multiple incidents reported. Avoid Ochi Road, reports of aggressive individuals, overwhelming responders. This is not a drill. The transmission died. Something slammed into Carl's front door next door. Wood splintered. Carl backed toward the dyer's wall, eyes wide. That's my house. Another crash. A scream cut short. Matthew felt the moment snap. We go, Whitley said. Not a question. Matthew nodded once. We can't outrun this on foot. Not with them. They're in daylight now, Carl whispered. They don't care. A shadow passed the front window. Then another. Footsteps dragging uneven on the porch. Thor barked, raw and defiant. The first blow hit their door hard. The wood shuddered. Matthew raised the Lawson, aligning the sound, bracing himself. Everyone behind me, he said calmly, voice steady despite the terror clawing his chest. No matter what you hear, no matter what you think you see. The second blow cracked the frame. A wet breath leaked through the splintering wood. The daytime attack had come, and there would be no pretending anymore. Savannah had crossed the line, and so had they. The third impact split the door frame. Wood screamed. Screws tore free with a sound like breaking teeth. Matthew felt the vibration through the floorboards, through the soles of his feet, up his spine. The house shuddered, old bones protesting violence they had never been meant to endure. Down, Whitley hissed. The kids dropped instantly. Saoirse pulled Matthew Jr. flat behind the overturned table. Morrigan guided Raymond with mechanical precision, hands firm but gentle, pressing his face into her shoulder to muffle any sound. Lilith stirred, tiny breath hitching. Matthew didn't move. He stood 3 feet from the door, sunglasses dulling the world into a smear of grey pain and shadow. Lawson 380 raised, staff leaned against the wall within arm's reach. He aimed by sound alone, by the wet drag of breath, the scrape of fingers forcing their way through broken wood. The door burst inward, not all at once. It peeled. A shoulder forced through the splintered gap. Then a head, hair tangled and stiff with something dark and sticky. The smell hit Matthew next. Iron and rot and sweat layered so thick it burned the back of his throat. The thing made a sound that might once have been a word. Matthew fired. The pistol cracked like thunder in the enclosed space. The recoil bit into his wrist, sharp and familiar. He fired again, then again, counting each shot with cold precision. The body collapsed forward, weight slamming into the doorframe. It didn't scream, it gurgled. Something thick spilled onto the floor and soaked into the rug. Another sound answered it from outside. A rush. Too many feet. More coming, Carl shouted. Matthew dropped the pistol onto the table without looking and grabbed the staff. He stepped forward just as another shape forced its way through the broken door, hands clawing, teeth snapping at nothing. He swung. The staff connected with a hollow crack, skull or collarbone, he couldn't tell. The impact vibrated up his arms, solid and real. The body went down hard, thrashing, fingers scraping uselessly against the floor. Matthew didn't stop. He swung again and again, until the thrashing stopped. Whitley fired from behind him, sharp, controlled shots that echoed painfully. Matthew heard one body drop outside, another stumble into the porch railing. The sounds blended, Gunfire, snarling, the wet slap of flesh on wood, glass shattering somewhere nearby as another house failed. "Dad!" Saoirse cried. Matthew turned his head toward her voice just as something grabbed his arm. Cold fingers. Too strong. Nails digging in. He slammed the staff backward without looking. Felt resistance. Felt it give. He tore free and stepped back, heart hammering. Thor lunged from his blanket. The dog moved slower than usual, injured leg dragging close, but his jaws closed with terrifying certainty around a forearm that reached too far inside the house. There was a crunch. A scream. Thor shook once, violently, then released. The arm fell. It twitched. Thor growled over it, blood dripping from his muzzle, but his eyes were clear. Still him. "They're not biting him," Whitley shouted over the chaos. "They're ignoring him." Matthew understood immediately. "They don't want him," he said. "They only want us." Another body forced itself through the door, tripping over the fallen ones. Matthew swung low this time, sweeping the legs out. The thing hit the floor hard, skull cracking against hardwood. It tried to get up. Matthew brought the staff down with everything he had. The radio crackled to life behind them, forgotten and screaming, "All residents advised, this is not containment. Repeat, not containment." A window shattered. Glass exploded inward from the living room side. Matthew heard it rain down like ice. Saoirse screamed. Matthew Jr. sobbed, unable to hold it anymore. Whitley spun, firing toward the sound. "They're coming through the windows!" "We can't hold this. We gotta move now." Matthew didn't argue. "Whitley," he said, voice steady despite the blood soaking into the floor beneath his feet. "Plan." She already had one. "Back door," she said. "Fence into the alley, car if it's clear, if not, church." Matthew nodded. He turned toward the hallway, staff raised, sweeping wide to clear the path by memory alone. He struck something solid, felt ribs cave under the blow. He shoved the body aside with his shoulder, ignoring the way its teeth snapped inches from his face. "Go!" he shouted. They moved as one. Saoirse first, dragging Matthew Jr. Morrigan carrying Raymond with impossible calm, one hand clamped over his mouth. Whitley scooped Lilith up without breaking stride, half pistol still in her other hand. Carl followed, radio abandoned on the table, eyes wild. Matthew backed toward the hall, staff swinging, listening for breath, for movement, for the wrong sounds. Something grabbed the end of the staff. Matthew twisted, yanking it free, then drove the butt into the sound until it fell silent. They reached the back door, just as another crash shook the house. The front had failed. The back door flew open into sunlight so bright Matthew cried out despite himself, pain knifing through his skull even behind the dark lenses. He staggered, half-blind, trusting Whitley's grip on his sleeve. They burst into the yard. The alley beyond was chaos, people running, screaming, falling. Shapes moved wrong, fast and jerking. Gunfire cracked somewhere nearby, then stopped abruptly. The world had gone loud. Matthew turned once, staff raised, listening to the house they were leaving behind. He memorized the sounds, the way the wind moved through the broken window, the way something inside knocked furniture aside, the way a home died. Then Whitley pulled him forward, and the Dyer family ran, not away from Savannah, but deeper into what it had become.